But and quick shout out too. Thanks everybody for 3,000 downloads. That's pretty freaking awesome.
We probably should have led with that. Maybe I'll put that at the beginning.
Yeah, we probably should have. Yeah, yeah.
If I have time, I'll edit it. But I'm studying for exam next week, so I don't have time. But
no, you're not. Everybody's listening knows that's a lie.
You see a lot of memes on my LinkedIn and stuff. You'll know how much studying I'm doing.
I'm just going to start commenting on everyone. Matt, go study. Matt, go study.
But no, for real. Thank you, everybody. Like 3,000 downloads in like 55 countries. Like I literally took a screenshot of it at 7 a.m. this morning whenever I took the screenshot. It said 52 countries. And like I just like went back and looked at it like 4 hours later and it said 55 countries. And I was like, what the heck just happened? Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the CMO Mentors podcast, where usually we bring you industry experts to talk through construction management items. And sorry, this week we just got a couple knuckleheads. So it's just me and Kyle this week. We've both been pretty busy schedules, and we just wanted to get on here and have a conversation. And anybody in the live audience, feel free to join the conversation, chat in the chat box, ask your questions, join in as we get going. So what's going on, Kyle?
Hey, Matt, doing pretty well. Thanks for asking. A little tired these days, but getting through it. How about yourself?
Same, man. It's been a busy couple weeks, couple holidays, couple family trips on the weekends. And so you work all week, you travel all weekend, you get back to work, and it's a busy time.
You know, the sad thing is when you just said there were a couple of holidays, I was just like, holy crap, there were. But yeah, no, you're right. There were. I've worked right through them, so I don't even. It's not phasing me right now.
I guess a couple. I say a couple, but I guess it was 4th of July, but it fell on a Tuesday, so it felt like it was it was 2 holidays in one almost. But So one thing I wanted to get into was a big thing I see on Reddit is, kind of a lot of people in the construction manager subreddit is people asking about like what's an experience of a construction manager. So I kind of want to flip that onto you. Like, so what is a day? And actually, you've been working nights. So what is a day or night like in the life of a construction manager?
Sure. Well, let's start with the night, since that's what I've been doing. So, the shift times are a big driver of how people are feeling on their night shifts. And, we're working 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. right now. So, 10-hour days, and, getting in around 5 p.m., start getting up to speed, walking around with the crews, talking with the foreman, talking with the daytime CM too, of course, important. Kind of having that passover, that handover meeting. So kind of walking through the site, seeing what got done during the day. Really also too, the main point of that is talking with that daytime CM and kind of figuring out, all right, here's what got done, but here's what I need done tonight. That's the big one. Usually, at least from what I've seen, Matt, is the daytime CM's usually the lead, the ones who's really driving the project. And nighttime, we're there for supplemental support. We're there to help keep the wheels on the bus if we can, but and keep making progress. The hard part about that I've seen. So I've done night shifts now at least 3 or 4 times on projects, and each time for a solid month or more. And the biggest challenge I think with that is the crews that you get. A lot of times people don't want to work nights. Surprise, surprise. And so getting the tradesmen that want to do that too is also a challenge. So I see a lot of temps get brought in. I mean, every single time I do this, there's a lot of temporary workers brought in to support, which just means that productivity at nights already goes down because people are tired. So let's say from 100%, you're already down to maybe 60 or 70% just off the bat because people are tired. Now you bring in temps that don't know, the company standards for the trades they're working with necessarily. Maybe that they're also temps that are more so laborers or helpers instead of actual pipe fitters or journeymen. So now you just lost another, let's say 15 to 20%. So, really night shifts, you're probably running 50% efficiency if I was to guess. But you also got to, those numbers suck. But you also got to consider, is making 50% efficiency better than nothing? Well, depending on the project, it still is. But so that's kind of the getting things started. And then we have our safety meetings around 6:30 p.m. Talk through our JHA for the night, the plan, what the crew is working on, any safety risks, anything they need from me as the owner's rep, anything I have to go talk to the client about and get figured out. Maybe they got to use one of the dock doors, or they got to shut down something in the plant for an hour or two for some work or something. So that's kind of the next step there, is having that meeting with the foreman. That it's kind of our daily huddle, if you will, for the night crew. Mm-hmm. And then then we just go about our business as usual. Lunch / dinner, whatever you call it on nights. That's for us. That's around 9 or 10 o'clock. Just depends on what's going on. We started out at 10 o'clock, but we shifted it to 9 p.m. recently because nothing's open at 10 o'clock. So these guys are trying to go to lunch at 10, and there's nowhere to go get food. So we started doing it at 9 o'clock instead. So lunch is at 9, and then they're working away. They get a break or two, as kind of, as per usual, morning, afternoon breaks. And then around 3 a.m. they're cleaning up, doing cord roll-ups, getting the area ready for day crew tomorrow, and I'm writing my report for the evening. And 3:30, 4 o'clock, I'm off the site. So in a nutshell, that's my usual night.
And then you work all day to keep the business going in the daytime.
Oh man, that's been the tough part. And I was texting you yesterday about this. Like, I knew it was going to be tough, but this has been a whole new level of tough, because it's like every day I've got people putting meetings on my calendar in the morning at like 7 or 8 o'clock. So it's like, well, I'm not going to go to bed for an hour and get up, because then I might miss it, first of all, because I might be sleeping in a coma. But the second part is I'm just going to be too tired. So I usually just end up staying up. And then, when that meeting's done in the morning, I go to sleep, and then I'm back up in the afternoon for more meetings and head into work. So it's been interesting, man.
It is interesting. Especially, I can't imagine. I mean, flipping back and forth. This is what we was texting about. Yesterday. My days are blending together as your nights are blending together. But I've had friends that work at plants and that sort of stuff, or they're police officers, and so they'll be working night shift, but they'll flip. I forget what this. Every other week they're flipping between days and nights. I'm like, that's gotta be awful, going back and forth. But when they're working nights, right? Like, they don't have to do anything during the daytime. Like, they're off. They're just sleeping. They have nothing to worry about, except, that transitional day is probably a mess for them, because they're staying up for 36 hours or something silly just so they can get flipped over. But it's just, I don't know. You get burned out fast.
That's definitely true. And I think people in law enforcement and also medical, I've heard of, do that. I think nurses do that quite a bit, unless I'm mistaken. But yeah, I mean, that'd be really tough. I mean, honestly, some parts of that I think would be almost even tougher than what I'm doing, which is the flipping from days to nights back to days to nights. To me, that's the tough part, because you start to get used to something, your body does, and then all of a sudden you flip back again, and then you confuse it all over again. You got to relearn. So it's just like, it just sucks. There's no doubt about it. Hey, have you done much nights before, Matt?
No, not anything. Nothing to really talk about. I mean, we've had
avoid it like the plague.
We've had some, we got a deadline coming up and a couple really late shifts type stuff, but nothing consistent. So, being a owner's rep, construction manager can mean a million things, right? Like, kind of what your day-to-day responsibilities are. You could just be a staff augmentation if your client's got a lot of capabilities and they just need an extra hired gun, essentially. You could run the whole program for them. There's so many different variables of what a construction manager could do for an owner's rep. So kind of what you're doing right now, like, what is your kind of sort of tasks? Like, what are you responsible for?
Well, there's a few different things, but again, me being on nights as kind of the supporting CM, my role is even minimized quite a bit. But as far as the project that we're
on, you're just keeping everybody awake.
Oh yeah, man, trying to keep everybody awake and trying to keep everybody playing nice together, because now that we're 5 weeks into it, people are starting to get a little tired. It's starting to catch up to everybody on the site. People are getting grumpy. We haven't had much for blow-ups and tempers. Actually, we did have one, unfortunately, earlier in the week. We had a young guy on site. And this is a good little story, actually, for anybody listening. So we had a young guy on site. He was a temp. He was brought in. I think he was an apprentice pipe fitter or a welder, one of the two. But anyways, he was brought in for help. Been around for a few weeks now. And I don't know if it's just being tired and being grumpy, but he got into it with the fire watch. And so for anybody that's not familiar with it, so fire watch, whenever we're doing hot work, cutting, grinding, welding, anything that could generate heat or a spark, we got to have a person there dedicated to watch that work take place. Just in case there's a fire, that person's standing there, they're ready to go with a fire extinguisher. I mean, and literally, believe it or not, it's a really important job that we have somebody there that can watch for fires and keep them burning down a whole manufacturing plant. Pretty important. And so a lot of times they'll bring in somebody just for that job specifically, who, I mean, honestly, their job. And I'm not going to lie, for anybody listening, that's got to be a tough, crappy job to just stand there all night long and watch people work. I mean, now that's kind of what we do already, but but at least we get to walk around. That fire watch has to stand in one spot and just be focused on that hot work taking place to be ready to put out a fire. So it's got to be a tough job. So I wouldn't want to do it.
I've got a follow-up story about that. You can go ahead.
All right. Yeah. Well, it'll be short anyway. So this something happens the other night, and I'm walking through our work area in the plant, and I don't know if I mentioned, this is a flour mill, so there's always a dust hazard, and dust is also very combustible. So hot work is a very big concern in these flour mills. And so I'm walking through the other night, and so the fire watch is there, and this kid is there. And I kind of hear something. I hear like an argument taking place as I walk into the room. And then as I walk in, I see this kid kick something. There's like this plastic stool. And what I found out was the fire watch was sitting on it, because he's sitting there and he's bored. So he was sitting on it, and the kid it's 3 o'clock in the morning. He wanted to start cleaning up, and the fire watch was like, "Hey man, I can't move. I got to watch, I'm still fire watching. I got to watch this over here." And I don't know what happened. He got mad about it. And so then they had this heated argument over nothing really. And then this kid kicked the stool, and that's when I walked in and saw that. And to me, that was like something that's like, that's an aggressive thing. I mean, that's as far as I'm concerned. And he kicked it at the fire watch. That's violence as far as I'm concerned too. So I quick grabbed those two. I said, "Hey, hold on, guys. We got to talk about this. What's going on here?" And then when I brought him over there, the kid was like, "Oh, no, I'm fine. And I'm like, "No, you're not going to do that in here." I said, "You guys go outside to your trailer and talk to your supervisor and work this out." So then they left, talked to the supervisor. A few minutes later, I saw them both back in there, and the supervisor. And then I talked to the supervisor. I was like, "Well, you didn't handle this the way it needs to be handled." I said, "He has to leave the site right now." They said, "We have a zero tolerance for violence on these sites." That's the one thing I have no patience for, is violence towards another worker. I mean, we're all working together. We need to be looking out for each other on these job sites. We spend more time with each other than we do our families. Violence is not acceptable. So right. I said, I unfortunately had to dismiss him from the site that night, and it's too bad, because I hope that he left it with an attitude of learning instead of just being pissed off that he was kicked off site. But kind of given what I saw, I'm sure he was just mad at me. So,
yeah, unfortunately, those guys, I've been seeing enough. Those guys typically don't take that to heart, unfortunately. Maybe one day they'll wake up, and when they get a little older. But I mean, we've all been young. We've all had issues. But you were asking about working night. I was thinking, no, I haven't. But we were working on a project in Georgia. It was at a military base, and basically had a lot of structural steel welding to do. It was on a vehicle barrier, kind of on the waterfront, and it was in southern Georgia, basically in the swamp on the waterfront in July, hot, miserable, humid, and you got these welders, full welding hoods, all decked out, right? And so we shifted their work hours. I think they started at like 2 a.m., right, or 3 a.m., something like that, and they were done by 8 or 9 or whatever shift was, 10 o'clock or something, right? And basically just shifted their workers' hours up, so at least they could be working in the cool days. I say cool, it's still hot and humid at night over there. But anyway, so now you got welders and you got fire watches out there. And I forget what it was. It's been years back, but I think there's an OSHA minimum of how far they can be. So we had our welders set up as far as they could be apart, with a fire watch in the middle, because he watched 2 technically. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have to have one fire watch for one welder, because we had a lot of welders out on this thing. So we had one fire watch for 2 welders. But like at 4 o'clock in the morning, a guy sitting in a lawn chair out in the middle of nowhere underneath, you know what I mean? Just like, it was impossible to keep those guys awake. I think we probably lost 2 or 3 fire watches, because you'd go out there, or the owners, I was with a contractor at that point, but the owner safety guy would come by and have to wake up for fire watches. And so you're not a very good fire watch. So we had to cycle through and get another one. And it was interesting times, interesting things you see in the industry, when you start, especially working nights and odd hours and in weird places. And so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's just one of those, I mean, it's this particular situation that we're in right now in my company, I mean, we agreed to do this project to help out, you know, another partner construction management firm. They're the ones that have the main contract with the manufacturer, and then we're just, you know, supporting them for their second shift coverage. Well, you know, we kind of came into this knowing it would be this way, but also it was like, well, if you guys need help and if the customer needs the help, you know, there's a lot of value in this. It's going to suck, but we'll do it. So that was kind of the attitude we had is, you know, it's going to suck, but hey, you know what? We'll be here and we'll be your support for you. So, whew. But so hey, so Matt, let's turn it back on you now. We talked a little bit about the nights in the life of a construction manager. What are the days looking like for you?
Well, for me, I'm awake, but they're hot. No, I mean, being in Houston is hot right now, but I think it's like 105 heat index right now, and it's just stupid. It was like 100. It was 98 at 10 o'clock news last night. It was saying it was like 98 or 99 heat index still. So it's just brutal out there right now. But yeah, so I mean, for what we're doing, I'm working on a county courthouse program, and counties, a lot of counties, you know, they have a lot of capabilities for when it comes to construction. You know, a lot of school districts don't, unless it's a big growing school district. Then they'll have maybe a construction staff or something like that. But you know, a county, they do a lot of construction work, but they do a lot of road work, a lot of horizontal work. You know, they have a lot of infrastructure like that. Typically they build a courthouse and it lasts 100 years. So they're not building buildings very often, right? Yeah. So anyway, they brought us in to kind of help that side of things. The owners' reps, our contacts, I mean, they definitely know what they're doing. They're up to speed on everything. When it comes to construction, it's not like a school district or something where you got to like really break it down into elementary concepts for them.
And by the way, good pun there with the elementary concepts. I like that. Just to call that out here.
It was unintended, but I'll take it. When you're building an elementary school, you got to really talk in elementary terms. Anyway, so they've been a great client. They've been fun. They've been, you know, really eager. It's going to be a cool program for them. They're expanding their courthouse campus. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, what the day-to-day looks like, you know, various meetings, depends on, it's a cement risk project with multiple phases. So as we're working in some buildings or some phases, we're still in design of other phases. So having design meetings, having field coordination meetings, having, you know, every other week OAC type meetings. We go out and do daily site walks, you know, observation reports, any deficiencies we find, we write them up. Deficiencies, for people who don't know, is like really from what our perspective is, we're not quality control or quality assurance. So we're just going out and making sure that they're meeting the plans, the specs, things are in the right spot, they're using the right materials, they're meeting the, you know, whatever they submitted on has been approved. Make sure we're kind of also, you know, the role we fill is kind of the day-to-day eyes and ears for the client and the design team. So if we see something funny, you know, if we think maybe it's funny, we may call the architect or call the engineer or something, like, hey, you know, is this right? Like, I'm looking at the drawings, looking at the specs, and just kind of helping them kind of do their job better too, right? Because a lot of architects and engineers, they'll come out once every couple of weeks, maybe if it's an OAC meeting, once a month. Right now, everyone wants to do OAC meetings and do stuff virtually. So getting them out there, you know, depends on the complexity and the level and the area of the job. You know, sometimes they don't want to come out all the time. So having somebody like us out there definitely helps with the feedback and helps with documentation, right? You know, we do
sure
1 million photos. We use Procore, and so Procore is just, we have a guy he's really our quality control guy, our quality assurance guy, and I don't even know how many photos he's taken in the last year, like just 1 million photos. So, but it's just documentation the whole way through, right? And hopefully a lot of that documentation you never need. If things get sideways and you end up in a lawsuit, well, you've got the documentation, right? A lot of these daily reports and at least that's my take on, I think we talked about this the other day. Documentation a lot of times is you're preparing for the lawsuit, hoping you never get there, right? That's never the goal. But if you ever get there, then at least you got the story built. You got from what we're doing, we have the owner protected, right? And the client protected and those sort of stuff. So I do probably a whole lot more stuff that I didn't even mention. You know, reviewing, we're the first line of defense. I say defense of the review of the pay applications, change orders, all those sort of stuff. We look at it first, and if we're good with it, then we'll pass it along for the owner to look at, and the design team to look at too. So we're kind of managing that process, and then whatever else gets thrown on our plate day to day.
Yeah, and then you mentioned multiple phases. How long is this project?
It cut out. What did you say?
You mentioned multiple phases. How long is the project that you're on?
Oh man, they started design in 2020, and we'll wrap up with construction finally, probably halfway through 25.
Okay, wow.
So it's been a long project. I got out there I've been out there a year and a half. I got out there kind of start of 22, and so
gotcha.
When they really ramped up construction, I got out there. But we've had guys kind of working on the program since I think they started sometime January of 2020, and then COVID hit and everything got a mess, and then stuff we budgeted in 2020 and 2021, everyone knows what inflation's been doing and cost of materials and lead times. And it's just been a moving target, trying to make it all work and fit. And then we've had to be real creative too. One of the projects we did, we actually had to bid it out a couple times, and we actually bid out first the mechanical and electrical scopes because we had to get long lead time. I mean, an air handler used to be 18 weeks, 12 weeks. And now it's 40, 45 weeks, right? These things are crazy. Generators are 52 weeks. And at that point, you're still crossing your finger, you're going to get it. And so we identified some of like the critical path things and we bid that stuff out early. So just trying to be creative because it's not a typical time right now.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and you actually just had a question for you, because something that I see a lot in manufacturing is their budgets internally get released in kind of in stages and in phases. And so, they'll get their long lead funding approved right away. That's to order the equipment. That's to get all of those long lead, items ordered up right away that are, those long lead times, all those 30, 40, 50 plus week items, equipment, whatever that is. They kind of get their first section of budget released to go spend that money right away. Get stuff ordered, obviously, because it's such a long lead time that you want to actually have the stuff to be able to put it in while the project's still going on. So, but then they might have another round of funds released, and then another round, et cetera. And that all kind of depends on the project. But what I have been seeing, and why I'm bringing this up is that, they're spending all that money on the front end, sometimes even spending more if they have to, because there's so much stuff that is long lead these days. So many high dollar pieces of equipment, because costs have gone up too. Everybody knows that. So what used to cost $3 million is now $4 or $5 million to order up. And so with that being said, they're spending and even overspending sometimes before the project is fully funded, fully approved. And so I'm wondering if you see things like that in your sector that you work on, or do they have budgets released at different phases, different stages? Kind of how does that work?
Every project's different, right? Every program's a little different and those sort of things. What we did basically, we've been cost estimating through the whole design phase, right? But we kind of did this before I got out there, but they did basically a big preliminary cost estimate for the cement risk program at the 50% DD, 50% design development. And it kind of locked in, actually it was before I was there, it did 50%, 100% DDs. It was in the DD stage anyway, right? So it kind of got them an idea for their funding, all this sort of stuff, and they put a contingency on that, because as you develop stuff out, there's a design contingency you put on it, because you think it's this, I forgot this thing and that thing, and we forgot this code. And, just as you design, as you finish design, you find more cost, essentially, right? So anyway.
Oh, yeah.
There's always, and you can look it up. There's all these different stages of design. There's different design contingencies you should carry. And as you get closer to basically construction drawings, your design contingency should decrease down to zero, right? In theory. So anyway, they had this, and they had these contingencies on there. All the water at almost every package we bid out, just because it's blown that out of the water. So we've been having to scramble, do some be creative with some of their funding sources. But we're making it through. We've been creative, we've been resilient, and finding a way. So it's, at the end of the day, it's going to be a good program for the county.
Good. Yeah, well, and you mentioned being creative, finding a way. That's the name of the game on the project I'm on right now. We're hit some pretty big um, design misses, if you will, some opportunities. I think they like to call them nowadays. Some things that probably should have been done a little differently. That unfortunately were pretty much like showstoppers for construction. So we put in a bunch of steel around this platform for this bin and flour system that comes through these bins, goes into this equipment that actually bags it in these big 50-pound bags of flour. That's pretty much that's the project in a nutshell. And there's a big chunk of new steel that we put in, new steel platform with some decking, and there was a designed hole that goes through that because it has to go in the center of this equipment. And well, guess what? The hole's not big enough. So it was built. We put it together exactly like the drawings and the 3D model showed, and it was to the spec and everything. But when the equipment got into the building and started getting rough set, well, guess what? That hole's not going to work. So last couple of days have been basically taking 2 steps back, pulling out a bunch of steel, making some cuts, making some modifications to actually fit this equipment now. And then actually, hopefully, as we speak to right now, they're putting the equipment back in place. So
What was the problem? The equipment showed up bigger than the drawing said it was going to be.
well, that'll be next week's discussion, I'm sure. And actually, maybe it's even this week's. It's the who done it, and it's the finger pointing. It's gonna happen. I'm sure it's gonna be the engineers didn't design it this way because they didn't have the model from the vendor, and the vendor didn't provide the model this way because the engineers didn't ask for it, or maybe the design wasn't far enough along because of changes the client made, or there's going to be everybody pointing the finger every which way here. And unfortunately, what it ends up usually coming down to is that it ends up being a big waste of time. And we just need to get this project done, and then costs and all that stuff, we'll figure it out later, and we'll figure out we gotta get this done and not burn any more time and burn any more money doing it.
That's, man, I don't know how many times I've just seen stuff where you don't have fully coordinated shop drawings, right? You have different trades, right? And if they never coordinate their shop drawings, and BIM is a great tool to do that. But so many projects don't really need a full BIM model. And even if it is a full BIM model, if they just don't pull the right equipment Revit file and throw it in there, and it just, the next thing you know, you're designing off of something is wrong. And man, I've just seen time and time again where, especially when you get multiple trades trying to coordinate together, if you don't have a good plan, and a coordinated shop drawing is a really good plan, whether it be in 3D modeling or just, I mean, hell, even if you just take a piece of notebook paper and sketch it out together, at least if you have a plan together of how this thing is going to go together. But if it's not coordinated, I've just seen so much money go up in smoke. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's a mess and it's finger pointing. And a lot of times the owner ends up paying way more than they should, because it usually ends up in some sort of change order, or if that's not captured, well, now not all of them, but some of them will want to capture it in a future change order and hide it in there or something like that. And it's just, anyway, it's never good for anybody.
No, it's not.
There's so much value in coordination.
No, you're absolutely right. And the little bit I was going to add in there, just kind of contrasting what's worked well and what hasn't in this kind of a circumstance is, so this particular model, I believe, was developed and issued 3 months ago. I don't think it's been updated since. And what drives me crazy is on these projects, they like to say that this 3D model, this Navisworks model, is for reference only. But at the same time, there are some details that are in the model that aren't in the drawings. And so that's a bunch of crap, if you ask me. Anyways, but they like to say it's reference only. And so guess what? They stop updating it. They're like, well, it gives you the general idea. It gives you the gist to build from. But ultimately, the drawings are the governing document, the specifications. You got to follow those. And then, of course, the caveat to cover all this is always, well, and call the engineer if you have questions. Yeah, okay. if we did that, we'd never be off the phone with you. So, but what I've seen work, and the kind of the contrast to that, what I've seen work well is when the model is continuously updated throughout the project. Every week, there's a design coordination review. There's clash detection where you go through the model, you look at what's been added in the last week, and you look through it as a team and you talk about, all right, here's what's been added. Do we have any conflicts? Do we have things that are interfering? Oh, we do now. We need to address this. It has to be a continually updated document for it to really be valuable. Otherwise, all that freaking money in engineering, I mean, yeah, maybe it's still 80% that was fine, but that last 20% is always what bites us in the ass. It's always these little things. Even like we're experiencing this week. Guess what? Our hole wasn't big enough. All right. Well, I guess we just lost 2 days right there on that one little thing that somebody missed.
It's always the little things. It's never the big things are the easy things, right? It's the small details that can completely blow up everything. I mean, just having a hole not big enough, like that's a showstopper right there. So
it's a showstopper, and also too. I mean, having been on the engineering side, I can see both sides of the coin here. I can see what happened. Probably it was never in the scope and budget on the engineering side to update this model every week, right? And so everybody said, okay, well, here's the most cost-effective option. We're going to create this model, update it for 3 months, and then we'll stop updating it. It'll be our reference document until we find out that the shit's messed up in the field. well, guess what? We found that out, guys. We're here. We got to solve this now and move on.
Any money you saved on engineering, you just burned it right there. Plus,
well, and probably did, but honestly, maybe not too. Maybe that was also factored in, is that the money saved in engineering is still more than the change orders from the contractors. I mean, I don't know, but that could have been the discussion even too.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, there's always you're creating enough, and it's a gamble at that point. Roll the dice, I guess.
Don't they call it like engineering economics or something like that? I don't know. There's some kind of a subject for it or something.
I'm sure there is. And I'm sure I'm not an engineer by any means or an architect, but I'm sure there's a certain amount of thought process that goes into that sort of thing. Yeah. Hey, so one thing I did want to pick your brain on, after talking about it for, I don't know, years, I finally signed up to do the CCM exam, be a certified construction manager. I'm doing it, taking the test. Right. I planned a month ago. I finally said, all right, month out, I'm going to book a date. And so here we are next week, taking it. You're a CCM. You've taken your test. I don't know how long ago. Any words of advice, words of wisdom? Any tips?
Well, yeah. So honestly, for me and anybody else that's listening that is doing it or looking to do it, the best piece of advice I have, what worked the best for me, was to do the practice exam. And because, I mean, what I did with that was, and I might have even taken it twice and done 2 different versions of it, but doing the practice exam, really, once you do that, you also find out maybe the areas that you're not as strong in. So then you can put your time and effort and focused study energy into those areas instead of doing the stuff you already know pretty well. So for me, honestly, that was the biggest thing. I didn't study that much. I mean, I probably spent 3 months of time just doing a few hours every week. I mean, it's not like every single day or anything, because we just don't have that kind of time in what we do. I mean, and you have a family and stuff too, so you have even less time than I do and did. But
I booked it. I got tired of talking about it, so I put it on my calendar a month out, and then I've been out of town every weekend since. And I'm like, family trips, this and that, 4th of July, and I'm like, man, that was a bad plan, but here we are. I got tired of talking about it, so.
Yeah, well, and I took mine back in late 2020, so it's been a couple of years now. I'm sure it's changed a little bit, but what I do remember when I took it was there was a lot of questions on schedule, for schedules being developed. There was even some calculations on how do you calculate your float in the schedule. Those kinds of things that honestly I had never even had to really do before in the field. So I would recommend putting some time to that, understanding
it. Forward pass, backward pass, all that sort of stuff.
All that. Yep. And then, and then have you look and evaluate a schedule and determine the float and ask you some questions about it.
That's funny, because you talk about that, and I've heard somebody else say that they studied a lot of schedule stuff and there was 0 schedule questions on the exam. And they were kind of mad because they studied a lot of it. I don't know. They did it probably 5 years ago or something like that. And they were saying, like, because somebody told them, like, you got to make sure you understand the scheduling and do all that. And they studied real hard, and they were like, there's 0 questions. So I guess I imagine they probably randomly pull from like a large test bank, and you got the schedule heavy one. And
Oh, I'm sure. And there were also there were plenty of questions on ethics. Making the ethical decision. They'll give you a scenario, ask you which way is the most ethical way to act in that situation. What else?
As long as it's not like the stupid PPM exam or PMP exam where it's choose the most right answer. Like, they're all right, but choose the most right. Like, that's it, honestly how the exam goes. And it's like, or it's like, you encounter this. What do you do first? And you're looking at the things and like, it doesn't matter which one you do first. You need to do all 4 of these. It doesn't really matter which one you do first, but there's a right answer.
You know what? I think I do remember a few of those that I scratched my head on, and those were ones that I was like, okay, I'll come back to this one after I do the rest of them that I know. I don't remember a lot of those though, and honestly too, I feel that it's just like every other exam where test taking strategy is huge.
Yeah.
There's strategies to doing stuff, and like what I learned back when I was doing like my EIT exam, which is that 8-hour engineering exam, the first one anyways. Your first pass through, you only do the questions that that you're 100% confident on. Your second pass through, if you're still not sure of answers, you mark them, but you don't necessarily commit to them yet. And finally, your third pass. Now it's time. It's go time. You got to answer everything. And my understanding, like from a psychological perspective, is you build up the confidence that way, and that helps you make better decisions and what the answers are.
Mm-hmm. You probably get a flow too, and you got easy ones. Because I was already thinking about that. I was like, for the scheduling ones, those take time, right? You're not just reading and answering, You almost got to like build out a network diagram and do it all. And if you're going to calculate the float and stuff, and it's like, just skip all those, kind of batch those at the end. And then if you run out of time, right, there's only 3 or 4 or 5 maybe, and you didn't miss 20 questions because you were too busy working on these 5. And so, anyway, that was my idea anyway, was just to kind of skip those and batch them at the end.
No, and that's what you have to do, and obviously make sure you answer every single one. So even if you have to go through and guess at the last 10% of them, make sure you have enough time to do that and make them educated guesses. But also too, that I think that strategy works, and I've experienced it, because as you're going through, and you get a first pass all the way through the whole thing. Now you've read all the questions, and so you might be working on a problem, and you might figure out, oh, actually, I know how to do that question now. You might be able to go back and figure out some of the stuff that you didn't on the first pass. So. There's some good test taking strategies that if people aren't familiar with, I'd highly recommend they look into. It's worked out well for me in the past.
That's probably, tests are just, it's almost a game too, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Standardized tests like that.
Oh man. And I'm going to tell you too, in contrast, I had tests that when I was going to school at the university, I had tests where I walked in and I looked through the whole thing, didn't even know where to start on any of them. Closed the booklet up and walked out of the room. I'm like, nope, this isn't it for me.
Walk down to the counselor's office or whatever. I'm going to drop this class.
I did. I used up my one free withdrawal on geography of the U.S. and Canada because I could not. I couldn't grasp it at all, man. I am geographically challenged, apparently.
Man, I had to retake a few classes in college, and I should have dropped them, and whatever, withdrew. But like, I'm the optimal. I'm the, what do you call it? The optimist, where it's like, no matter how poorly you're doing throughout the semester, it's like, I'm gonna make it up. I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna get better, and it keeps building on itself. It keeps getting harder and harder, and you keep, especially in engineering, right? If you don't understand the first few weeks, like, you're not gonna understand the shit at the end.
You're screwed.
But I kept thinking, I'm gonna understand it. I'm gonna get it. And then you hate life for a full semester, and then at the end you take the exam. You're like, why did I even show up? College is fun.
Oh yeah. For anybody that's listening, going through it, I hope I feel for you. Haven't gone through it. I've been there, been in the trenches, man. It's tough.
It is, and I had no interest in being an actual professional engineer or taking that route. And so I did civil engineering, but when everyone else was signing up to take the EIT exam, I was like, no, why would I suffer? Like, I have no interest in being an engineer. I want to do like construction management. And plus, we had a rugby game that weekend, so I couldn't miss that.
You got to have the priorities in line here. I mean,
but it was just like I had no interest in sitting for that exam, just because like I knew that wasn't the path I wanted to take. Like, would it have looked better on my resume and would it, whatever? Like 100%. Could I have made more money fresh out of the gate? 100% probably. But like, I was just like, I am not studying and sitting for this thing because that's not where I want to go.
Well, and at the time for me, I only took it because that is the path I was going. The company I was working for was an electrical engineering firm, and all of them had their PEs. So it was basically an eventual thing that I would have to get if I had stayed there. And so, yeah, I just put the time in, studied, took it. Okay, but it was brutal. Oh, my God.
Did you pass on the first go?
I did. Yeah.
Nice.
And they don't tell you your score though, so I don't know. I must have just barely squeaked by, but yeah, apparently I did.
That's awesome, though, man.
Yeah.
So I've been asking you all the questions. You got any questions to bring up or anything to talk about?
Well, so let me ask you this: with your test coming up next week, Matt, how much? I mean, what areas are you feeling good about? Where do you think you're going to need to put your time and effort
in? That's a really good question that I don't have an answer for yet because I haven't put it enough time yet. We'll talk next week and I'll let you know.
Okay. So your test is next Thursday?
Yeah, it is. Okay. I'm gonna spend some time this weekend, and I got a practice test I've started playing with, but I honestly just haven't. Between work, family, making memes, like I just haven't put in the effort yet. But I feel fairly confident in it. Like I did the PMP, and it's a lot of the same sort of stuff, right? I've been doing this for long enough. Like, hopefully my day knowledge will carry me through. Actually, we just took an AGC in the company I'm working for. We do like monthly trainings, and we just had one yesterday on scheduling, right? And so honestly, it's like the same sort of stuff you would see on the exam, and it's stuff I've done a bunch of times, different trainings I've done, that sort of stuff. The network diagrams, forward pass, backward pass, calculating float and critical path and all that sort of stuff. So I feel fairly confident with those. Obviously, it's time consuming, right? That's why I just want to skip it for the end. But I don't know. Hopefully, I wanted, half of me just wanted to not study at all, sign up and just show up and take the test and see what happened. But I was gonna feel like a real buffoon if I bombed it and like had to go pay. It's not cheap; it's a few $100. I have to go pay a couple $100 more to go retake it because I didn't pass. But almost as just like an experiment, and like had not wanted to study. I just wanted to show up and do it. But I thought that'd be a dumb idea, especially if I failed it.
Well, yeah, if it's one of those that if you pass it, you're like, oh, see, I know what I'm doing. But if you don't pass it, you're like, well, crap, I guess I probably should have put some more time into that.
Yeah, then you're like $200 or $250, $300 poorer, and like.
Yeah, I guess there goes the beer money for a while.
Yeah. Sorry, we can't have McDonald's, kids.
Ramen noodles for the next few weeks.
So.
Actually, Matt, I do have a question for you. So,
what's that?
I've been trying to get into a lot lately with looking up new things to try, new innovative ideas, and maybe it's a new process or a new technology or something. Is there anything that you're doing or that you've seen that has kind of had your interest lately?
Man, I've gone down. We talk about. I think every time we talk about technologies and stuff, and you're sending me 3D renderings you're making with your phone on the job site and like some crazy stuff. There's a lot of really cool, crazy stuff out there. Man, there is I'm gonna give them a shout out, although I haven't really even fully played with their product yet. But there's this company I've talked to a little bit, and he's supposed to be getting me set up on a demo trial. But it's called Roger, and I think the website's it's tryroger.com. But they have this system. You log in with your Microsoft account, and it reads your Outlook, and it really, because I don't know about your Outlook and your email, you just get stuff from all over the place, and it's a mess, right? And you're trying to figure out, what am I doing now? How am I answering stuff? But they basically read your Outlook, and you can basically click like to do now or do later. Like if you answer it now, or you can put like timestamps on it. So say, for instance, too, like a big thing for me, and if you read the book Getting Things Done, and like in my hacks, it was a big thing, right? Create your to-do list, create your follow-up list, right? So, and a lot of that was driven off the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. But a lot of it's when you're processing your quote inbox, and your inbox could literally be like your email inbox, or it could be just your tasks. Like, right, if you call me and say something, I make a note, right? That kind of goes into my inbox. If it's actionable, I need to do something with it. If it's less than 2 minutes, do it right then. But if it's more than 2 minutes, basically set a time for it in the future, right? And schedule that sort of stuff out. It helps you get through all the easy stuff and at least get them off your plate. So a little easy stuff doesn't fall through your plate, but it creates a system where you can come back and do kind of the more timely things, right? Like if you ask me for a drawing, and if I don't have it easily accessible, or if I have to go ask somebody else for it, on my first pass through with my quote inbox, I set myself a reminder to go do it on my to-do list. And then also say, I send you a message, right? Say, hey, Kyle, can you send me X, Y, and Z? Well, I need to create a follow-up in my system for you. And in case you drop the ball, we didn't both drop the ball, right? And like, if I think I'm going to give him 3 days, and if he doesn't get back to me in 3 days, then I'll ping him again. So this system, it most of us live on our emails, right? I feel like every construction manager, project manager, construction, you live in your emails. There's so much stuff back and forth in emails all the time. And so the system, it basically reads that, and you work in there, and I can set reminders. So if I send you an email, say, hey, Kyle, can you send me the drawing for the flour mill, right? For the hole that's too small. And I can set it just boom, right there, click it, and I can say in 3 days, follow up. And so it'll go to my list, and in 3 days, it'll hit a reminder. It says, follow up with Kyle. And I'm like, oh, he already did it. He already sent it to me. So boom, check it out. It's gone. But it kind of automates with your input, but it helps automate some of that to-do list, helps your follow-up list. And so that's something that I'm kind of excited to try out, honestly, and see how it goes. But the demo they showed me looked really cool. But yeah, I'll send the stuff to you if you want.
No, I'd love to see it. Very, very cool. I mean, I would say the similar but not as advanced version that I do with that. So we use Gmail in our company, and with Gmail you can snooze emails, where basically you kind of kick the can down the road, like you say, hey, snooze this until later today or till tomorrow, and I think it's good. It's a good thing as long as you're not just constantly pushing stuff off. Because what I do is just like you're saying. I think about, okay, when can I actually realistically work on this if it's not right now? Mm-hmm. So I'll snooze it till tomorrow the same time, or maybe till later on today when I have some more free time in my schedule, and then I'll address it then. Now, granted, I am still bad, and I have some things that I have snoozed for weeks at a time, but at some point it's like, okay, I really got to get this done now. Similar thing, but I can see where the automation would be really, really handy, where it kind of pings you every few days or whatever you set it to.
And it's too, I didn't even think about this part, but one of the cool parts too is if you get your whole project team on there. And I say your project team, like, I don't know if you'd really want, if you're the owner's rep, you wouldn't want the contractor and the architect and all that sort of stuff. But if, like, say you're a contractor, you got the project manager, 2 assistant project managers, superintendent, whatever your little team is, and they're all in the same system. And if you're kind of passing the ball back and forth on items, right? If you say an email comes in to me and you, and it says, hey, can you guys handle this? I can sort of, quote, assign it to you, or I say, I got it. And that way it kind of automates that too. So it's like, I don't assume you're doing it, you assume I'm doing it, and the ball gets dropped, right? So you can kind of coordinate with it amongst your in-house team on those sort of things. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's really cool. And I mean, and as a team, we're using Scrum to manage our to-do list these days. But there is still some manual entry of, all right, here's the due date, here's who's going to work on it. You still got to put all that stuff in there and drive it to make it actually useful.
And this has a Scrum board built onto it too. So
cool.
I've already sold you. Just now I have to go get Outlook. I don't know if it works for Gmail.
I'm sorry, but I hate Microsoft products. I am so against them. Every freaking one I've ever used has just been a gigantic pain in my butt. So I avoid them. I avoid them like the plague.
I get it. But I've never liked the Gmail user interface. Just never liked it.
It's very simple. It's almost like too simple.
Yeah,
but it's worked.
Yeah, I like Outlook. It's just something about Outlook. Even like the web browser version of Outlook, I hate. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's personal preferences, I guess.
Well, and I've just had so much frustration with Microsoft stuff. Skype was a freaking disaster. They brought Teams out. Teams was a disaster at first. Even lately, Teams for me not working very well. I don't know why.
They updated it. And they like,
good.
Yeah, they populate. So my whole team's crashed the other day, and I'm sure it wasn't me alone. Other people probably listening to this probably had the same experience where it popped up one day and it said, "Welcome to the new teams. You can try it now, and you can always go back to the old if you don't like it." And I was like, "All right, I'll try it." So I clicked it over, and it just nothing worked. Like it wouldn't work. It was buggy. It was laggy. Like I couldn't join in meetings. Like I was having to I was trying to get on meetings, and like I did it, and then I had like a meeting with like my boss and like some other important people, and then like I'm getting text messages, "You joining the meeting?" Like I've been trying for like 5 minutes to join this meeting, and so I finally logged in on my phone, and I'm like, "Can't do it, man. I don't know what's going on." And then so I finally got it. They didn't want to even revert me back to the old one. I clicked the toggle switch, it wouldn't go back. That was buggy. So I finally got it switched over to going back. And then today I go to get on a meeting, and it's like, "Welcome to the new teams. You're in the new teams." It's like, no going back now. And I was just like, oh my God. It wasn't as buggy as it was the first go around, but
yeah.
Anyway, so
it drives me crazy. But I am still using Teams because I don't have a choice. So
yeah, we do so much stuff on Teams meetings that it's just like you have to do it. And anyway, so well, man, if you got nothing else, we'll put a pin in it there, and I'll let you get to work.
Yeah. I think I should probably start getting ready here. Head to the site soon. Don't see anybody that has given us any comments or anything, so I guess they're pretty bored, just like
They're trying to get Teams to work. They're frustrated.
Yeah, they're still trying to get on.
So,
no, it's all good, man. It was fun.
Yeah, next time the people in the audience, don't be shy. Join the conversation.
Yeah. But and quick shout out too. Thanks everybody for 3,000 downloads. That's pretty freaking awesome.
We probably should have led with that. Maybe I'll put that at the beginning.
Yeah, we probably should have. Yeah.
If I have time, I'll edit it. But I'm studying for exam the next week, so I don't have time. But
no, you're not. Everybody's listening knows that's a lie.
You see a lot of memes on my LinkedIn and stuff. You'll know how much studying I'm doing.
I'm just going to start commenting on everyone. Matt, go study. Matt, go study.
But no, for real. Thank you, everybody. Like 3,000 downloads in like 55 countries. Like I literally took a screenshot at 7 a.m. this morning. Whenever I took the screenshot, and it said 52 countries. And like I just like went back and looked at it like 4 hours later and it said 55 countries. And I was like, what the heck just happened? So no, we all appreciate it. This is awesome. And it's honestly been the community that kind of keeps us going. The messages I get from people that are very appreciative and are asking questions and that sort of stuff. That's what keeps me going. And I think we said this last week, and I said it in a LinkedIn comment earlier to kind of end this conversation, but if all this just helps one or two people, like it's worth it for me. Like honestly, like just I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying the feedback we get of like it's just helping other people kind of shorten their learning curve. So anyway, that's my why.
No, 100%. I'm in agreement with that, and I, my feeling is the same. As long as people are enjoying it and still liking it, I'm devoted to keep doing it. So, and it's been fun too. It had some awesome people we've gotten to meet and share some experiences and conversations with. Honestly, people that have even changed the way I do my business and have led to some really good things. So for me too, there's even been a great benefit. And so as long as people are getting value out of it, my intent is to keep doing it.
I guess that's true. I'm doing it for everybody else, but at the same time, it's definitely making an impact on me of just the people we've been meeting and like just the stuff I've been learning. And it's changed my mindset on a lot of things too. So it's been cool.
Yeah, so big thank you to everybody for listening in. And as always, give us feedback. Let us know if you want to see some things done differently, have some different ideas, or maybe some topics. Always open to topics too.
Always open to topics, always open to guest recommendations, always open to like new niche ideas, like Kyle getting his haircut on the next episode. Anything like that. Anyway, Kyle, I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thanks, guys.